Cheerful chatters can be heard as many people gathered. Guests, dressed in sophisticated attire, mingled amidst an atmosphere of camaraderie and celebration. The bride, radiant in her resplendent gown, shared joyous moments with her husband, each elegantly attired. Unlike the unpleasantly rainy weather, colorful lights were shining in the banquet hall. Just in time, as if there was a crack in the sky, flash, and lightning struck. At the same time, a loud roar hit their eyes, enough to make them frown. Dressed in an elaborate gown that mirrored her chaotic personality, a figure was coming. Mana accumulated as she raised her hand and it glowed brightly. The grand event was about to be disrupted by the unforeseen arrival of a disruptive force. The Villainess, driven by a mysterious vendetta or simply seeking attention, made a dramatic entrance. The spell has been completed, and she pointed her hand towards the door of the wedding hall. Boom, a huge explosion occurred, alarming the crowd. The once happy occasion transformed into a horrific spectacle. Because of the Villainess's whimsical machinations, eyes mixed with fear, along with screams, turned toward the lightning-struck entrance. It was when the nobles opened their mouths like a frightened carp. The attendees, initially immersed in the festivities, were now paralyzed with a mixture of shock and fear, as if it had been said in advance. Everyone became silent as the familiar figure showed up. Robelia. Different emotions were fiercely shown. Surprised as if they had seen a dead person. Madness can be seen in her eyes. Robelia wickedly smiled while greeting everyone.
I'm flattered. You still remember me.
Robelia spoke imposingly. Andrew called Robelia with a surprised face. Despite being surprised, his eyes were desperate, as if he was looking at his beloved lover. Andrew asked Robelia why she suddenly here. Margaret, who was hiding behind Andrew, was scared out of her wits. A cold sneer flowed from Robelia's lips, at the sight of his attitude of unknowing the shame. She never thought he would call her husband like that, in such a crowded place with his wife next to him. Robelia caught her husband, Andrew, with an affair, but she wasn't even the official wife. The first sin, Andrew pretended a happy life with Robelia, while deceiving her of his affair. Andrew's voice towards Robelia was so sweet, still. It was heinous enough, which made her almost vomit. Right then, Robelia turned towards Margaret, the official wife per se. One of Margaret's eyebrows twitched slowly, as if this situation was ridiculous. Margaret, who knew about Andrew's affair but wanted it, cursed under her breath. Robelia then asked Margaret how did she feel after pushing Robelia off the cliff. The second sin, attempting to murder Robelia, while luring her in a secluded place. Lady Cruella, Andrew's mother who had been watching, screamed at Robelia. Even other nobles in the hall looked down on Robelia, just because she is a lowly commoner. A commoner, like a tiger's roar. Lady Cruella's loud shout instantly shook the chaotic venue. Robelia smirked. She then made her way to Andrew's mother, Cruella, who was screaming. Robelia light-heartedly greeted her mother-in-law, in a sarcastic tone. The third and the most unforgivable sin. Lady Cruella kidnapped Robelia's only child, merrily. Those 3 sins will be enough for Robelia to punish these bastards. At that moment, another figure appeared behind Robelia and made the crowd quiet. A golden-haired man with a big stature stood beside Robelia, looking down on everyone. It was none other than Prinil von Diames Tygen, the emperor of the Tygen Empire. Prinil stepped into the hall. The sound of his angry footsteps made everyone silent. Lady Margaret and Lady Cruella gasped in horror, as they saw something unimaginable. Andrew confronted Robelia and asked her, "What is this commotion all about?" Emperor Prinil, who finally arrived at the epicenter of the commotion, introduced Robelia. He used sweet words to show how loving he is to Robelia, and also introduced her as the future empress. In line with Prinil's introduction, Robelia stepped forward with a confident smile. Robelia Ayland Gracie, Robelia's full name. not just the Robelia Elin that they once knew. Robelia smiled. Her vibe is full of elegance, but her eyes contain a hint of lunacy. Andrew and Hamilton, the scum who lived in two houses, and Cruella, who took her child from her, and Marchioness Margaret, who abused her precious child, merrily. It's now time for revenge. It was 5 years ago, in a remote cabin on the outskirts of Tygen Empire. Just in time, merrily, who had just begun to walk after a year had just passed, toddled toward Andrew. Andrew spoke tenderly towards his daughter. Merrily begun to babble words like a child should. Her silver hair, which perfectly resembled Andrew, fluttered gently like a melted moonlight. Andrew looked at the woman from a distance lovingly and smiled. Merrily, the precious child who was in Andrew's embrace, glistened her eyes as she saw her mother. Robelia looked alternately at Andrew and merrily, then smiled back. Robelia can confidently say that she is the happiest right now. She wandered from place to place with her mother during her childhood for some reason. Because of that, her dream was simply to make a family and settle down in one place. A perfect and simple life, or Robelia thought so. It seemed that this happiness would last forever, until things took a different turn. Today was the day Robelia will work. So she entrusted her child to Delphina, her benefactor. Delphina, who decided to take care of Merrily today, helped Robelia give birth to Merrily healthily. It was the first time Robelia will be away from Merrily for days. Delphina sympathized with Robelia. Andrew has work, so Robelia tried to do odd jobs to contribute. Robelia gently poked her baby who was deeply asleep. Afterwards, she bid farewell towards Delphino with a light smile and left urgently. Today, Robelia will do work after being introduced to a job by her only friend, Selly. It was a job working on a marquee wedding or something like that. When Robelia arrived at the market, she could see Selly in the distance who was calling her. Robelia waved her hand and walked towards Selly cheerfully, expressing her delight. Selly answered lightly and led Robelia towards the Mana tunnel, which would lead them to the wedding. Robelia was grateful to Selly for introducing a job with a generous pay, even if it was only a one-time job. They discussed the details underway. Just then, Robelia paused, sensing that something was odd. She asked Selly why do they still keep on hiring, even though the pay is high. Selly seemed to not know anything, as she was just assigned to the kitchen area only. Selly then asked Robelia where is Andrew working right now. Upon Robelia's answer, Selly also said that they will be working to the estate on the south. Selly continued quickly as if she had a motor in her mouth. She remembered that Andrew got injured 3 years ago, meaning he could be doing dangerous jobs. Only bandits and monsters could injure someone. So Selly can't help but wonder. Selly added that Andrew's silver hair was eye-catching, making it seem like he was a noble. Selly kept talking, as if she was a member of the Marquis Hamilton family herself. Selly kept on speculating things, that Andrew might have a noble blood because of his appearance. With her silly talk, Selly then pointed out that Robelia also had some striking features. Maybe because both Robelia and her husband were good-looking, they can be mistaken as nobles. Golden hair and emerald eyes, still. Selly was just exaggerating because it was not true. Because Selly was staring at Robelia so hard. She lowered her head as she was embarrassed. Banter as friends. Selly and Robelia loves imagining things out of fantasy. Selly then switched the gossip back to Robelia's husband, saying he's always away for work. However, Selly went too far with her next words. Live into houses. At those words, Robelia's mouth opened in astonishment. A handsome husband who is always busy. Robelia kept on murmuring words. She didn't want to have ridiculous doubts about her husband, who sacrificed so much for their child and her. Selly, who was still staring into Robelia's eyes, changed the topic again. She told Robelia that Robelia has a similar appearance, with the future Marchioness of Hamilton. Though, Sally added that Robelia is much prettier. At Sally's joke, Robelia's mouth finally burst into laughter. It was like comparing whose celebrity you have as a look-alike. After their ridiculous and nonsense gossips about Robelia's married life, they finally arrived. Robelia widened her eyes because it was the first time she saw this. She was amazed at the colossal mana stone that was powering the mana tunnel. The mana stone was above the door. It was like a dimensional gate. Sally guided Robelia to the entrance and explained that this connects to Hamilton Estate. Mana stone imbued with mana was the driving force behind the mana tunnel to transport anyone quickly. After Sally's explanation, she showed Robelia a crystal token in her hand. Only those with permission could use the gate, like nobles, or the people who work under them, just like Sally. Looking at it, Robelia felt an inexplicable emotion. Her daughter has the same name as the emblem. She told Sally that Andrew came up with their daughter's name. But then, she paused. Robelia's face grew darker like the sunset sky, having an ominous feeling. Robelia shook her head, trying to shake off the anxiety in her head. Sally, who had already walked to the mana tunnel, urged Robelia to hurry up. Sally raised the corners of her mouth and smiled. Robelia put off the sense of dread. Back then, had she not taken her friend's hand? Had Robelia trusted her gut feeling and not cast away her friend's ridiculous joke, she might be able to live an innocent, simple life, being oblivious to things. Robelia smiled as she got swallowed by the light, without knowing that this will change her life forever. Soon, they arrived at the Hamilton estate in a blink of an eye. Later that night, Robelia saw something unbelievable that she had no choice but to block her mouth. All her nerves stopped as if she got frostbite, because the man who was smiling with a woman, that man was her husband, Andrew. Robelia just discovered that her husband, Andrew, was having a wedding with another lady. Would Robelia's fate be the same forever, if she didn't know her husband's deceitfulness? Or will she be able to change at this time?
That's all, folks. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment down below, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be posting more videos about good reads you may like, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. See you soon.